Well, good evening, kids. It is Dab Savage, and we are back for Can You Believe It? Episode 3. Episode 3 of the Dab Savage Show. And I'm rocking this shirt today that was given to me by one of our sponsors, which we'll get to as we go along this podcast. But thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, I would like to just kind of take a moment to thank everyone who has subscribed to the podcast. It's huge, guys. It's huge. I know there's a lot of little people on the internet that are trying to get followers and trying to get subscriptions to their OnlyFans and stuff like that. Well, here's the deal. My page is completely free. You'll see me probably in some scandalous things that you won't have to pay for. So please subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, post it on social media. You know, if we can really get this thing going, the more episodes we can pump out, the more interactive we can be, the more fun we can have. So for those of you who have followed and subscribed and commented, my utmost thanks, but we got to get these numbers up, guys. I'm not some little bitch that's going to have 20 followers. If it stays low, Daddy's got to go, because everything I do big. So please continue to spread the word, and we'll keep pumping these out. So and I would also like to address a couple things. I've gotten a few messages, a few not too nice messages about my my last show. There was a the part of the discussion was about women on social media and their acronyms and things like that. And I would really like to take a second to apologize. Wait, no, I wouldn't like to take a second to apologize. If you have a problem with anything I said, everything I said was real. Those acronyms are bullshit. So if you were offended, I'm sorry. You have thin skin, and you should probably, I don't know, take care of your kids and not be such a fucking train wreck. But anyways, enough about that. Let's be positive. So today's episode is going to be a little different. You know, we have really kind of deep dove into my life and my opinions on things and my wrestling career, and we are going to continue to do that as we go along. I've had a lot of people ask about a Q&A that will actually be coming up very soon, possibly episode 4. So subscribe. But today's going to be a little different. We're not going to talk about me. Today's episode's not going to be hateful or opinionated or controversial or anything like that. I thought it would be kind of cool to take a trip down memory lane. And so today's episode, we are going to discuss why life was so much better in the 90s than it is now. And I have said, I actually heard a really great Scott. I actually heard a really great quote by, this is actually completely random. Vanilla Ice actually made a quote one time, and I don't have it in front of me because we're winging this, but it was something to the effect of civilization as a whole peaked in the mid-90s. And coming from Vanilla Ice, that's really deep, because he's right. Civilization as a whole did peak in the 90s. And I'm gonna give you some examples of why and how, and hopefully it'll shed some light on things that we can all do to get, not that we'll ever get back to that time, because unfortunately I love 90s everything. 90s music, 90s sitcoms, you name it. 90s, and now 90s clothes and all that's coming back. But it's just a time in life that'll never exist again, and it's really sad. But there are things that we can do personally, and with our family and with our friends, that at least can give us some symbolism of what that time was like, and hopefully bring us closer together, because it's super important. In the world that we live in now, having a good relationship with your family, having a good friend relationship is huge. So, anyways, let's go on this ride together. The first thing that I would like to bring up, of and why things are better in the '90s than they are now, is movies. My God, you know. Um, we're in the heart of summer. I've got my AC cranked down so I can throw on this banging leather jacket. But blockbuster movies, summer was huge. Your Independence Days, your Jurassic Parks, just all these great your Forrest Gumps, all these action. Well, not that Forrest Gump's an action flick, but all these just killer movies that you had to see in the theater. That was a thing, like. And not only would you go see a movie, I remember seeing Jurassic Park 3 times in the theater, and then they re-released it a couple months later, and then going and seeing it again. That was just how huge movies were. And watching the previews was cool because you would be like, oh my gosh, coming next fall or coming next summer or whatever. Here's part 2 or whatever. It was just a super, super exciting time. I mean, I remember going to birthday parties at movie theaters in the '90s. Like, that's crazy to think, and it's really sad because the movie industry has changed so much. And we're gonna get a little off topic because this is another one of my kind of pinpoint notes here, but with the emergence of streaming and everything being at a fingertip, and then Hollywood being so fucked up and all these people thinking that they deserve all this money and stuff like that, and just the cost of everything being so expensive, there's just not the budget to make the really, really great movie anymore. Because your Netflixes, your Amazons, your Paramounts, your Hulus, they pay for those rights. So someone trying to produce a movie, with the exception of like a Disney or something like that, just doesn't have the budget, which is why you see all of these movies that are so AI generated. It's like it looks cool, kinda, but you just know it's bullshit and it's computer generated. So the movie theaters have really, really taken a hit, and it's sad. There's a theater right down the street from my house that does, like some budget nights where you can buy a ticket for, I don't know, I think it's $5 or $10, and sometimes they show old movies, and I try to support because I thoroughly enjoy going to a movie theater. It's just there's just not really good movies to see anymore, and to piggyback off of the Netflix and the streaming services, my God, people, if you're close to my age or a little older or a little younger, how badass were video stores? Oh, I could smell it. Videos Unlimited was my jam, and I remember going there. They had a popcorn maker, and just walking up and down the aisles trying to find a good movie to watch, the new releases with all the boxes, and just the disappointment, or if all the boxes were empty and there wasn't a cassette behind it because someone had already beaten you to it, and kind of side-eyeing the desk to see if maybe someone had returned it. Oh man, and it really made you appreciate the film so much more because you weren't playing on your cell phone. You couldn't you couldn't binge it or watch 15 minutes and start it back in a week because that was a one-day rental, baby, and if you didn't get it back and rewind that tape, be kind, please rewind. You were not gonna see that movie. So the movies that were coming out were a zillion times better. B, you just really, really enjoyed it because you had to physically go walk around, smell the popcorn. Yeah, just super, super cool. And one of my favorite things, and I keep Videos Unlimited, just holds a really, really special place in my heart. They had a thing, and it was like, I think it was, it wasn't for new releases, but it was like, movies that were in the other tier had been out for a bit, but it was 4 for $4 or something like that. 4 movies for $4, and I remember, written Speed or written Jurassic Park or these movies that I'd seen a zillion times, and then sneaking into the erotic thriller section. Ho ho ho! Who remembers Shannon Tweed in the erotic thriller section? If you were an adolescent boy, you do. And trying to find a title that didn't sound like it had a sex scene in it, and Jurassic Park, Speed 2, Shannon Tweed stars in Get My Panties Off Volume 7, and then, Toy Story or something, and trying to sneak that in and not getting caught by your mom. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. There was a movie called Dinosaur Island that was like super, super low budget that I snuck in there a few times. 12-year-old Chandler was a pretty big fan. So shout out to movie theaters. God, I wish they would come back. And unfortunately, video stores will probably never come back. Weird story. There is one Blockbuster Video in the entire world, and it's in Bend, Oregon. Bend, Oregon, Blockbuster Video. I was never that big on Blockbuster. It was kind of the bougie. I had a Blockbuster card, and I went. It was a little bit too commercial for me. I love the video warehouses, the Videos Unlimited, the Joe's Video Shack. I like that. Those were the ones, the mom and pop video stores. God bless them. I wish they would come back. Another thing that was so much cooler in the 90s that clearly we don't have the means to anymore. And again, and this kind of ties into Netflix and stuff. We do have the means because you can get Apple Music, you can get Spotify, you can get Amazon Music, you can get whatever. But bands and artists putting out albums, my gosh. Do you know that in, I believe there was about a 5-week period in 1991 that Pearl Jam 10 came out, Stone Temple Pilots Core came out, Metallica The Black Album came out, Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and Nirvana Nevermind all came out within like a 4 or 5 week period. Like, sit back and think about that. How crazy that is. All these bands, the best of the world, I would say at their time, but you could say ever. I think Guns N' Roses is the best band ever. Pearl Jam is my favorite band. But Guns N' Roses, for a 7-year period, was the truth. They were the best band in the entire world. But there was a 5-week period where all of those albums came out. Like, can you imagine going to a Sam Goody's or Music Land and being like, oh God, what do I pick from? Metallica The Black Album or Use Your Illusion 2? Clearly the answer is Use Your Illusion 2, but you see what I'm saying. You had such a powerhouse of music that, it was exciting going to the mall and, which I didn't put mall on this list, but clearly a mall. How badass was going to the mall and playing video games and walking around and chasing girls and calling 1-900 numbers on the payphone and, trying to push in a bunch of numbers so you could talk dirty to, some fat lady smoking cigs. The 90s. But yeah, but music was crazy. And, I'm a huge music fan, so I could go on about this forever. We'll probably do a whole show about music. But, and I'm just talking about rock. I'm not even getting into the R&B and the hip hop stuff because that's a whole nother spectrum. I mean, good God, the powerhouses that you had. I mean, just Tupac and Biggie, like battling back and forth, East Coast, West Coast. What the hell? Like, how crazy was that? But and then, but what I'll say with rock is you had the obviously the 80s period kind of died out. You had the Nirvanas, the Pearl Jams, the Soundgardens, the grunge scene in essence, kind of kick in, and then so Kurt Cobain dies in 1994, and music changed. I mean, it did. These and what I like to call the softer rock kind of started to take over. So you had that lull period from 94, 95, where you had like, bands like Bush, and they were still kind of grunge, but also a little pretty and clean. And then it started transitioning into like the Matchbox 20s, the Goo Goo Dolls, into like the Third Eye Blind and that kind of stuff going into towards the later 90s. And, I remember as like a, I don't know, 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, I love Matchbox 20. I love Matchbox and Goo Goo Dolls. But I remember, like, at that time, just being like, "Man, music's gotten soft. Like, we need grunge." But it was a great transition in time, and trying to be a cool hard ass at 13 years old, I'd be like, "Oh, Matchbox 20's gay." Well, I never would say that, but I might make like comments. But when you look back, that music was incredible, and if we had anything even on the level of a Goo Goo Dolls or a Matchbox 20 today, they would be the biggest band in the world because they're actually talented musicians, which is my sort of what I'm getting at is in the 90s, you got to look forward to an album coming out or, a band dropping a single or, whatever it may be. And now you don't because there's just not good music anymore. I mean, I know if any of you young kids are watching this, you listen to some bullshit EDM or some trap music or whatever the fuck you listen to, but that's not music. And now you can fucking type in ChatGPT, "Hey, make me a song about banging hoes on the corner," and it'll make you a song, and it sounds clever. Like, that's not music, guys. That's not music. Music died in 1999, right before Y2K. Music died. Don Henley sang the song about the airplane when Buddy Holly crashed the day the music died. Nah, no, Don. That was a sad day for music. But music died right before Y2K and we went into the 2000s because we once were a powerhouse. And now here we are 26 years later and it's EDM and artificial intelligence. So God bless it. I miss it. I miss good music. I miss it. I still live vicariously in the 90s, as you can tell. And I still spin records. And what's great is now I'm older and a lot of my favorite bands play small shows at 6 o'clock in the afternoon because I know their clientele is my age. So I still get to enjoy a good live show. But man, there was nothing like it. There was absolutely nothing like it. Okay, we're gonna come back to one. I kind of jotted a few things down, but I want to get off movies, music, kind of the topic for a second. Here we go. Another thing that was, and look, I'm not political. I am not political. I ain't this way. I ain't this way. I fucking hate everybody. I don't like either. I don't like if you're way too far left, I don't like you. If you're way too far right, I don't like you. I think you're gullible and you're stupid and you should just live your life and do your best. But one thing that was so much cooler in the 90s was the government. Ooh, I went there. I went there. Think about it. We had, and I don't think Bill Clinton was per se a great president, but we had a president that was playing the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show and cheating on his stupid, disgusting wife in the Oval Office, getting blowjobs. That's pretty cool. Now our president, we went from a president that couldn't talk and couldn't walk to a president that sends funny and mean tweets. That's the progression that we've taken in government. So it's got nothing to do with a Republican or Democrat or any of that shit. It just is. Shit was cooler then. And in the 90s, you didn't talk about who you voted for. And I think, you know what? We were talking about earlier about traits that we should take down from the 90s and continue and try to be more like that today. Shut the fuck up about who you voted for. Nobody cares. And if they do care, all it does is spark argument and controversy and make people dislike people that they like. I remember like years ago, I made a Facebook post and I said something to the effect of, I remember the good old days where the only way that you knew who someone voted for was because they had a bumper sticker on their car. That was it. That was it. That was the extent of it. And he didn't walk up to somebody and say, you fucking pussy, you voted for Ross Perot. You just didn't care. You didn't. It didn't matter. And it should still be that way. So, guys, look, the world's fucked. It was fucked before Trump. It was fucked before Biden. It was fucked before Obama. It's just fucked. Okay, so just shut up and don't hate somebody because they lean a certain way. And also being said, like, don't talk about it. It doesn't matter. Sorry, but do you really think that this isn't like a work, that this isn't like a gimmick, that these people that are in these positions in power weren't put there like they give you no good choice. You know, there's the South Park episode about, you know, what's better, the giant douche or the turd sandwich. None of these people give a shit about you or the fucking America. It doesn't matter. You just kind of gotta you just gotta do your shit and live your life and just be quiet about it. And you know, if everybody would quit arguing and it wouldn't cause so much controversy on the internet, maybe eventually we could get like legitimate people that get blowjobs in the Oval Office again. Maybe so. All right. So enough about that. But another thing, and it obviously kind of goes in the whole pop culture sense, but television programs. My God, 90s sitcoms. To this day, when I get up every morning, I got Home Improvement on, I got Blossom on, I got The Fresh Prince on, I got Saved by the Bell on, I got Boy Meets World on. It was lights out. It was absolutely lights out. TGIF, you know, just Friday nights, just back to back to back bangers. Your Full Houses, your Step by Steps, your Dinosaurs, Perfect Strangers. Television was so great in the 90s. And one thing that was great about television, well, a zillion things were great about television. But one of my favorite things about TV shows from the 90s is they all had a purpose. They all told a story. A comedy series would have like one serious episode a year, you know, a season. And that was it. Everything else was lighthearted. It was fun. It made you feel good. It made you happy. It made you laugh. And it was great. And also, TV shows were like 30 episodes a season, you know, and then you would have a little break where they would play reruns, and then you would go into the next season with another 30 episodes. And now it's just such bullshit. Like, you know, you get 8 episodes, if that. You wait 2 years for another 8 episodes, and you might watch a show so we're 8 episodes, with this huge gap, and then with these networks, with the way it is, they may just cut the television program, and you may never have a resolution. So you've literally wasted years of your life on this TV show that you don't even know how it ended. And, you know, television finales back in the 90s, like, oh my God, it was a spectacle. The finale of Cheers, Sam Malone shutting the door, you know, or not, sorry, Sam Malone standing there and someone knocking on the door and him going, sorry, we're closed. Like, it still gets me. That was in 1993. Or the final Fresh Prince where, you know, Will turns the light off. Like, I get chills just thinking about that because it was so impactful, and it meant something. And, you know, we were in the cable television era, so you had to watch the show. Man, you know, it's just stuff like that just doesn't exist anymore. So, and then you know, there was also the era of like the 90210s and the Melrose Place. which were also great. I mean, that was more of like my older sister's kind of vibe, but going back and watching them, a little later on in life, like they're great. They're great shows. I mean, it's just television was so much different. And like I was saying, because of cable TV and because, even like, what's it called? Timu? Not Timu. What was the thing that came out where you could record? I don't know. I can't remember, but it was like a box that you could buy with your cable in like the early 2000s. But you had to watch the show, so you couldn't stream it. So it was just impactful, and it's a shame that television. I mean, I'm not saying there's not good shows now, because there are, but it's just, I don't know. You've got so many options, and you never know if it's going to finish, and the wait between everything. It's just not the same, and it's sad because to this day, like I get so much joy from watching some of those old television programs. I really, really do. Um, the Oh, I did mention earlier that we have a new sponsor. So again, this shirt was given to me by our sponsor. So thank you, Jimmy. So our sponsor this week is Jimmy's Mail Order Brides. That's JIMMI, Jimmy's Mail Order Brides. So Jimmy's service is very unique. So they're not necessarily from Russia, and you don't have to actually sign a marriage certificate. You just call Jimmy and you tell him what kind of wife you want, and she's here in 45 minutes to an hour, and she'll stay. There is a daily fee that goes along with the service, but if you go to www.jimmysbridalservice.com/Dab Savage Show, I believe it's a 10% discount. So Jimmy, thank you for the shirt. Thank you for being a great sponsor. And thank you for my 3 beautiful brides this week. Okay, enough about sponsorship. One thing that I would like to kind of talk about, and this is, well, no, let's save that. I want to close with that. Celebrities. Man, in the 90s, celebrities were celebrities. They were pop stars. They were movie stars. They were television stars. Madonna, Prince, Kurt Russell, Mel Gibson, Sylvester Stallone, Jaleel White, Steve Urkel. I mean, Corey Feldman. There were so many different. There were so many different stars, but you know why they were stars? Yes. Were they uber talented? Yes. Everybody that I just named, uber talented. But they were stars because you didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what Madonna had for lunch. I assumed that Kurt Russell ate T-bone steaks and baked potatoes every day before he saved the world. You didn't know. If they had a political opinion or a social justice opinion or whatever, you didn't know. You didn't know. They were that character. Jaleel White was Steve Urkel. I don't know why Jaleel White just popped in my head, but you get what I'm saying. There was no separation of church and state. Whatever character that they played, whether it be on the big screen or on TV or on the MTV Music Awards, that was your impression of them. So, you didn't hear about their personal life or their drama or their opinions on, one way or the other on whatever. So it made them larger than life. And first off, now you don't even have to be fucking talented. You don't have to be talented at all. You can have big tits. You can just do stupid shit and hit the right algorithm, and next thing you know, people consider you famous. Oh, you're the guy with the TikTok, blah, 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 blah. It's really, really sad. And I hate it. I hate it. And I hate it because I'm really fucking talented, as we all clearly know. And, you know, there's girls showing their feet and stuff that are making zillions of dollars while I'm struggling to have 22 followers. So fuck that. I miss when celebrities were actually celebrities and they were larger than life and famous. And then, you know, just social media in general. And we're going to tie these in together. These are two things, but they all tie in together. So social media, so let's just go social media / family. Okay. So social media has ruined everything. It really, really has. Are there some cool things about social media, like watching this video? Yes, there are. But it really has ruined our perception of everything. Like, for example, social media. When you log onto Facebook, you see, a husband and wife with their big, beautiful house and their Land Rover and their 3 private school kids, and you think to yourself, as you're, struggling to pay rent this month, like, man, that's bullshit. Why does Ronnie have this great life and I'm over here struggling? Well, the truth of the matter is, Ronnie probably doesn't really have a great life. Ronnie wants you to think that him and Jessica are super, super happy and they have this great life. Jessica's probably banging somebody else. Ronnie's probably in debt up to his eyeballs with high blood pressure. They're probably, $150,000 behind on their house, maxed out credit cards, but they take the trip to Cancun and they get the Facebook pictures with lots of likes. That's social media and that's perception. And it's really sad. It's really sad. I think if you are going to use social media as a platform to express yourself or whatever, be yourself. Post funny pictures, post memes, post pictures of your dog. If you have a talent, like if you play an instrument, post a video of you playing your instrument. But don't try to post and make people feel inferior, because in all actuality, you're probably inferior. And let's just be real, So that's my social media thing. And kind of where I want to close today is the correlation between social media and family. Before we were glued to our phones, all day, every day, we spent time with ones that we loved, whether that be as a child going and playing wiffle ball in the yard, or going on bike rides, or going and hanging out in the woods, or whether that be, seeing that the traffic, or that the fluorescent lights were coming on, so it was time to come home and sit down and have a meal with your family. We need to get back to that. Sometimes I go to restaurants and stuff, and I've been on dates, and I see families all sitting at a table doing this. It makes me, I almost want to cry. I have literally gone on dates where a girl was like watching TikTok videos on her phone while I'm like gonna buy her dinner and a drink or whatever. Like, no, cut that shit. A, we're done. I'm probably gonna dip out and leave my bill for you, bitch. And B, like, your time with your loved ones is so short. I see, I've had loss in my life, friends passing unexpectedly, at a super young age. I see other people that lose loved ones at unexpectedly at a young age. And not that we can make that go away, because tragedy happens and it's super unfortunate and there's no real explanation for why the tragedy happens, but it does. And so all we can do is make the best of the time that we have on this world. So what we need to do is put your fucking phone down, go have dinner with your mom and dad, or your dad or your mom, or if your grandma's alive, go have dinner with your grandma. Call your friends. I rarely go out because I live in Arizona and most of my friends live in Georgia. But I get so much pleasure out of calling a friend on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon and just talking about dumb shit, or calling my mom or calling my dad and just talking about nothing. Like, it's stuff like that people take for granted because they are so locked into how many likes they got, or how can I keep up with so and so on Facebook, and fuck that. Just I rarely get serious on here, but I really am very passionate about this, and I think that we all need to just take time to unplug and enjoy the people around us that we care about, because I mean, I hate to be that guy, but they're not always going to be there, and there's going to be circumstances that come up, and if you stay in communication with everybody, you're always in the loop. Nobody gets slipped through the cracks, and if you're if you have a friend, for example, that's struggling, you may not know it. I mean, there's been times when I've been on like super big benders, past tense, but like was like super super just down in the dumps and depressed, and having that friend just reach out to talk about the Braves or music or dumb shit we did 20 years ago got that spark back in me where I kind of got out of that rut. And so you never know when someone close to you may be going through something. So the serious note of this show is to just really, really take time to enjoy your family and friends. And that's, God, I wish we could bring back 1995 or whatever. But we can't. We can't. Unfortunately, we can't. There's no real time machine. Damn you, Michael J. Fox. But what we can do is take little grains that we learned from that era, or if you're younger, but things that you see from that era, and incorporate them into our everyday life. And the number one thing that you can do is to take the time to spend it and communicate with people that you love. That's yeah. And that's all I got for today. A little bit more of a serious show today. Ooh, he's a multifaceted podcaster. But yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. We will reconvene next week. I've been in contact with a few guests, so we may have our first guest within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Coming up in about a month, I will be in Las Vegas. So if you're in Las Vegas, reach out, let me know. Love to have a drink, or maybe we could hop on. I plan on doing at least one live podcast from Vegas, so stay tuned for all the details on that. And don't forget our sponsors. And remember, kids, I love ya, and a little dab will do ya. We'll see you soon.